विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यस्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्रचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ वर्स नंबर 32 ईषद्भासनमाभासः प्रतिबिम्बस्तथाविदः बिम्बलक्षणहीनः सन् बिम्बवद्भासते सहि. So after dealing with this viveka between chit and chidabhasa, both outside the body and means in the external world and in internal world in terms of emotions, etc. So that is over. Then from 27th verse up to 68th verse, Vidyaranya has entered into a very big topic, technical topic, establishing Abhasavada Prakriya, which is a very particular method of teaching a Vedanta. So, and it is used for defining Jiva, Ishvara, and also a travel of a Jiva, etc. So after the death. So this Abhasavada is useful in defining this Jiva, which is Sagunam, that helps. Then Ishvara also, which is a Sagunam, and also in explaining the travel of the Jiva after death. So this, then it is called a Prakriya, because it's a method, basically a method of teaching. Technically it will explain Jiva, Ishvara, etc. and therefore that is called Prakriya, model. And it has a very important role in this Vedantic teaching. And the other one is a Pratibimbavada, and of course here which is very close to Abhasavada. We have seen now all the three Prakriyas, which is very close to Abhasavada. But here in this chapter we treat Abhasavada and Prakriya as one in this context. And there is another Prakriya which is called Avachedavada. So the aim of Vidyaranya in this portion is basically between 27th to 68. So the aim is this, and he wants to prove the advantage of Abhasavada compared to Avachedavada. So he established that a dosha, a deficiency in Avachedavada. They argued, Avachedavada people argued, that it has an advantage, because it has a less number of factors. To explain this Jiva, Ishvara, etc., it has a less number of factors, which manages with only two factors. One is a all-pervading consciousness, and the other is a enclosed consciousness. So without introducing a reflected consciousness, etc. That is in the Avachedavada. So the avoidance of this additional consciousness, reflected consciousness, is definitely, if you can avoid with a less number of factors compared to more factors, it is really good, which is called Laghavam. Lagu. What is a Lagu? And so Lagu means less. Here Laghavam means basically with the less factors. So we should consider Avachedavada, but then Vidyaranya said, well, if the reflection can be avoided and Vedanta can be established and the naturally the reflected consciousness, etc., is a unnecessary addition. And unnecessary addition means it is a Gaurava dosha. But if addition is very much necessary, then it cannot be called Gaurava dosha. And so he established why reflected consciousness is very much important to consider in explaining this Jiva, Ishvara, etc. etc. So Vidyaranya established that this reflected consciousness, the factor called reflected consciousness, is very, very necessary. His argument is that if reflection is not required, a mere enclosure of consciousness will explain Jiva, or that will be the definition of a Jiva, or it will make a Jiva, then the problem will be what? Well, he says consciousness being all pervading, everything will have an enclosed consciousness. Like the space which is all pervading, everything will have an enclosed space. So same way all pervading consciousness is there, then everything will have an enclosed consciousness. And therefore, the body has this enclosed consciousness, then the part also has an enclosed consciousness. Then this body is sentient, alive, then that part also should be alive, it should be sentient, but that we don't find it. And therefore, mere enclosed consciousness is not able to explain Jiva. Jiva, who is a sentient entity. And therefore, definitely we need something more than that. So, otherwise what happens is, even I told you about pot, but in case you can take any statue also, like statue of a Gandhiji or something. Then statue of a Gandhiji has a shape like this body, right? And consciousness being all pervading is enclosed in this body, then it will be there also in the statue of the Gandhiji also. Then the statue of Gandhiji is no more a statue. It's a live Gandhiji, alive, sentient. Then Gandhiji would be standing on that as a statue. He is standing somewhere, right? And then he would be tired also. He would sit down after some time. How long he will stand? So, but that doesn't happen. Even though eyes, etc., are there, ears, etc., are there in that statue, you don't find any sentiency there. And therefore, just enclosed consciousness is not a criteria. It cannot explain Jiva. And therefore, so Vidyananda's argument is enclosed consciousness status cannot give a Jiva status. So there must be reflection also to do so. And then if you remember, he gave an example of a measure being an enclosed space. When enclosed space of a measure gives a measure status, the enclosing material does not count at all. So enclosure or avacheda is not just sufficient, a reflection is required. And that reflected consciousness alone, basically with the help of that, entire Sukshma Sharira and this gross body become sentient. So reflected consciousness is very, very important. So in that, and then in 32nd verse, Vidyaranya points out in this context that he does not want to make a subtle difference between Abhasa and Pratibimba. Even though in advanced textbooks there is a difference between them. And I explained the difference between Abhasavada and Pratibimbavada. So Vidyaranya says we will avoid this internal difference between these two prakriyas in this context. For all practical purposes, this Abhasa and Pratibimba will treat it as a one only. So, and the nature of Abhasa, he is explaining. Abhasa is an image and is also a resemblance of the original only. And it's a resemblance, is a partial resemblance, partial similarity. So resemblance, you can see in the first word itself, Ishad bhasanam abhasaha pratibimbaha tathavidaha. So abhasa and pratibimba has been explained, has been taken as a one thing only. So Ishad bhasanam abhasaha. So basically there is a resemblance between the original, let us say Adhara Chaitanya and Abhasa Chaitanya. That resemblance is a partial resemblance, not total resemblance. So the resemblance only is is a definition of an image or Abhasa. Reflection is also exactly like an image, because a reflection also is a partial resemblance of the original. So Abhasa also is a partial resemblance and Pratibimba also is a partial resemblance. So in terms of pratibimba, I will say it has a partial resemblance to the bimba. In case of a abhasa, we will say, well, abhasa chaitanya or chidabhasa has a partial resemblance to the adhara chaitanya. Either way we say, but here they are taken as a one only. So abhasa also is a partial resemblance, and abhasa, for that you can translate it as an image, and pratibimba you can translate it as a reflection. So abhasa is also partial resemblance, pratibimba also is a partial resemblance. And also what is a common between the definition of both the abhasa and pratibimba? He says, well, it is bimba lakshana hinaha. So bimba lakshana hinaha. Hinaha means absence. Lakshana, characteristics, features of bimba. So basically without having all the features of original. Abhasa, even though it has a partial resemblance, so partial resemblance word itself makes it very clear that it is not totally a total resemblance it has with the original. So, well, without having all the features of the original, like like a photo, our own photograph also has a certain features of the original, and also, well, has not certain features are uncommon between them. Otherwise, my photograph, right, and myself are totally, have a similarity. Then photograph also in my photograph means myself in that photo will start walking, talking, etc. like I am talking right now. But it doesn't happen. But therefore, there is not total. There is no similarity at all. That is also not there, because seeing my photo, you say he is a Muktatma. So therefore, there is a resemblance also with the original. But not total resemblance. That's what he says. Bimba lakshana hinaha. So bimba lakshana hinaha means absence of the features of the original bimba. We should not take. We should take it as a total features. Absence of total features of the original will be there. Partially resembling, partial resemblance and partial will not have a similarity. Partial similarity will not be there totally. So this is what he said in verse number 32. Of course, we kept this verse aside and we talked about these three prakriyas. Now we'll go to verse 33. Sasangatva vikarabhyam bimba lakshana hinata spurti rupatva metasya bimba vadbhasanam viduhu. Now Vidyaranya explains further that in the previous verse, well, he said pratibimba or an image or abhasa has a resemblance to the original, which means in certain features it resembles original and it does not have all the features of the original. Some features are there, some features are not there of the original. Now the question will be between this abhasa chaitanya and adhara chaitanya, or a pratibimba chaitanya and bimba chaitanya, what are the resembling features and what are the non-resembling features? There it has been mentioned that it has a certain resembling features, it has certain non-resembling features. That was mentioned in verse 32. But what are they? So that he explains in this verse. So they say the original leaf and plastic leaf. Certain features are definitely resembling, similar. That's how you are able to say even if you see a plastic a plant and with all the leaves, etc., we immediately say it is a leaf. Seeing a leaf, plastic leaf, but you say it is a leaf. So certain features of the original leaf are definitely matching here, have a similarity, but at the same time, certain features are not matching. In texture and color, etc., it resembles the original, but it doesn't resemble in terms of because the original leaf will fade away, but this plastic leaf will not fade away. It remains green all the time. So anyway, so in this aspect they are different, and same way like abhasa and the original, or pratibimba and original bimba, well, the reflection is also has a certain or image or reflection has a certain features which don't resemble. What are they? That he mentions first. What are the features which are non-resembling features with the original? That he first mentions here. What is the first one? Well, he says, here he uses the word sasangatvam. That self proves sasangatvam. What? Sasangatvam means what? So it has a sangha, it has a connection, it has an association with the original. What? Pratibimba or a abhasa. That is why we always say abhasa or pratibimba, we always say it is a located. Where location itself proves that, well, it has an association with the medium. Medium is located. Therefore, abhasa or even the pratibimba is located. So where the medium is, there the abhasa is, there the pratibimba is. Also, it is as big as the medium. And it is, if the medium is dull, well, it is dull. If the medium is bright, the Chidabhasa is bright. And it also moves along with the medium because it is inseparably connected with the medium. And therefore, Abhasa is a sasangaha. Sangena saha vartate. Abhasa is a sasangaha having relationship or association with the medium. This is feature number one, which is a non-resembling feature with the original. Original means Atma, well, definitely, or Bimba. That is asangaha. And this is the reflection, or the Abhasa is sasangaha. So this is a non-resembling feature he is mentioning first. So this is one. Then he uses the word vikara, sasangatva vikarabhyam. So second feature is a vikara. It means a change or modification. So its brightness will never be the same as it is subject to increase and decrease depending upon the type of the medium. So the plant Chidabhasa is dull, we say. And and the animal Chidabhasa is little brighter. And human Chidabhasa is still brighter, more brighter. More brighter is not word brighter. Anyway, and among the human Chidabhasa itself, well, you can find the brightness varies in human being also. Before lunch, well, his Chidabhasa is very bright. After lunch, you tell him to study Pancadasi and he will find that it is so dull now. So anyway, so Chidabhasa has a different intensity, well, of the light. As if, like a bulb. A bulb has a certain intensity of the light depending upon the voltage fluctuation. Like that it is. So anyway, so Chidabhasa also has a different intensity of light. And well, so Chidabhasa is unlike Chit. And because Chit is asangoyam purushaha, it doesn't have any association with anything. Consciousness does not have any association, but the reflected consciousness definitely has an association with the medium. So reflected consciousness keeps varying like this. So, and why this consciousness does not have any association? Because it is Paramarthika Satyam, while everything else is a Vyavarika Satyam or Pratibhasika Satyam. So basically, therefore, there cannot be an association. Anything which is a Paramarthika Satyam means Atma alone is a Paramarthika Satyam, but that does not have any association with anything other than that because it's of a lower order of reality. And we used to give an example also, right? That a young person in a waking state, well, and a girl in a dream state can never get married, cannot have an association because no relationship is possible between the two different orders of reality. Similarly, well, such a kind of a vikara, modification, change, etc. are not possible in consciousness. So with regard to these two aspects, bimba lakshana heenata. One is a sasangaha, other is asangaha. One is a vikari, other is a avikari, etc. And therefore, so this kind of features of the original are not there in Chidabhasa or a Chit Pratibimba. So that's how he says bimba lakshana heenata. Bimba lakshana heenata means, Abhasa lacks the features of the original. Heenata means an absence. And lakshana means a characteristic, features. So it's the absence of the features of the original to the reflection with regard to this above two, these two. One is Sangha, association, and in terms of Vikara. Okay, So this is non-resembling features with respect to original. Then, but you said it is partial resemblance, so it has a certain common characteristic with original also. Yes. Then what are the common features? Well, we have talked about two uncommon features. Now, he mentions in the second line what is a common feature between the original and this abhasa, etc. Well, both of them are effulgent. He uses the word spurti rupa. Spurti rupa means both of them are effulgent, just like an original sun and this reflected sun. Both are effulgent. Not only both are effulgent, even the reflected light has the power, reflected sun, let us say, has the power to illumine, right? And the reflected sunlight on the moon has a capacity to illumine the earth, like a full moon night, right? Moon doesn't have its own light. Still, moon is able to illumine the earth. Well, it's due to reflected sunlight. So anyway, so basically, it has a prakashatvam, spurtirupatvam. Effulgence of the abhasa is called bimbavat bhasana. Bimbavat bhasana is a resemblance of the abhasa with the original. So in prakasha aspect, there is a commonness. But in terms of a relation with the medium, etc., and the modification, etc., there is an uncommonness with the original. So uncommonness, generally we call it as a vaidharmyam. And commonness, common features, we will call them as a sadharmyam. So this is regarding verse number 33, where he explains what are the uncommon features with the original of the Chidabhasa or Chit Pratibimba, and what are the common features between them. Now in verse number 34, Nahi dibhava bhavitvat abhasostipdiyah pruthak iti chedalpame voktam dhirapyevam svadehatah. Now Vidyaranya raises a possible Purvapaksha, either from a Avachedavadi or it can be from any person in general who objects to this Abhasavada Prakriya. A Purvapakshi may raise a question and Vidyaranya answers that question. Here, the first line is a Purvapaksha and the second line is an answer of Vidyaranya to the Purvapakshi. So, what is a Purvapaksha? Well, Purvapakshi says Chidabhasa is never experienced being separate from the mind. And Chidabhasa is never experienced independent of the mind by anyone. So it is always experienced when the mind is manifest. And when the mind is not manifest, Chidabhasa is not experienced at all. And so then in that case, how will you prove the existence of a Chidabhasa? Why do you introduce Chidabhasa as an independent entity? If it is you introduce, because you will say mind, then there will be reflected consciousness, right? We used to say also, if you remember, we used to say, who is this individual? Well, individual is a mixture of three components. What? Well, then the first is this mind plus Chidabhasa, means reflecting medium, then reflected consciousness and original. We used to say, means you are adding, you say three. Therefore, Chidabhasa is as though an independent entity. But no one can experience Chidabhasa independent of the mind. No one can experience. And therefore, you introduce Chidabhasa as an external factor other than the mind, I mean. And then you say, mind borrows that Chidabhasa from the Chit, etc. Or Atma lends consciousness to the mind. Atma as though lends Chidabhasa to the mind. Or mind borrows Chidabhasa. And so when you add it also, reflecting medium mind plus Chidabhasa plus original. So as though you are talking of Chidabhasa as an independent entity. So how will you prove the Chidabhasa as an independent entity? No one can experience like this. So Atma is lending Chidabhasa, and so you are introducing as an external Chidabhasa, and you are introducing a borrowing process, etc., or you introduce even a lending process, etc., what is the proof for the existence of an independent or external Chidabhasa? Well, that is a question. We never experience Chidabhasa independently. So he says, so Chidabhasa is invariably a experience along with the mind only. So dhi bhava bhavitvat. Bhava means existence. Dhi means the mind. So dhi bhava bhavitvat. Dhi bhave bhavati. Dhi bhave bhavati. Dhi bhave bhavati means Chidabhasa exists only when the mind exists. Dhi bhave. When the mind exists, well, bhavati. What? Abhasaha. You can see there. Dibhave bhavitatvat abhasaha. Abhasa only exists when the mind exists. So, when it is so, it is not experienced, and Chidabhasa does not exist when the mind is resolved. So, when it is not separately experienced, why do you give a extraneous existence, independent existence, separate existence of Chidabhasa? It does not exist separate from the mind. So therefore, you need not talk about Chidabhasa, formation of Chidabhasa, etc., and Atma is lending Chidabhasa, etc. Well, this all your talk is useless talk. From the mind, there is no independent Chidabhasa. There is no separate Chidabhasa. So this is Purvapaksha. Well, if such a question is asked, Vidyaranya says in second line, first, iti chet. If you have such a kind of a doubt, well, our reply is like this. What? See, you are trying to negate basically the separate existence of Chidabhasa just because it is not experienced separately. That's the criteria. Then Vidyaranya argues, well, in that case, no one has experienced mind also separate from the body. Whether it is our mind or your mind, mind is experienced only when the body is there. After the body is burnt or removed, nobody experienced the existence of the mind, right? Nobody experienced the travel of the mind, jiva, etc. In which case, how can you talk about a separate existence of the mind or different from the mind? Everyone will say body and the mind. Means is a separate existence of the mind. The mind which can never be experienced independent of the body. Well, about that mind, you always talk like it is a separate entity. Body and the mind, everyone says like this. So if you are going by experience, mind's existence separately should be rejected. Just as for scientists, the mind never exists, surviving after death. That is why they ask for the proof. They say brain is there. But you say brain means a part of the gross body, and the mind which is a part of the subtle body which is different from the gross body. So they are not accepting because we cannot prove them the separate existence of the mind independent of the body. So they don't accept. And therefore, so you cannot prove. So, and if you cannot prove, then our forefather, etc., is traveling and existing, how will you prove? Then why we should waste all our money for, for Shraddham and Tarpanam, etc. So, we don't see the mind traveling. We don't see the Chidabhasa traveling. And experientially, we don't have any proof of separate existence of Chidabhasa and the mind also. Therefore, Vidyaranya says, if you reject the mind, if you are ready to reject the mind, I will reject Chidabhasa, okay? Because both are never experienced independently. We should not use word body and mind. You should use word body. That's it. Never say body and mind. To say body and mind is mind has a separate existence. Well, but no, you cannot prove it experientially. And therefore, iti chet, if you are arguing based on experience, then your argument is too feeble, to stand scrutiny. Your argument is too weak. And that is what Vidyaranya says. So, what is the deficiency in the argument? Mind is also never experienced separate from the body, exactly like Chidabhasa not being experienced separate from the mind. Therefore, mind also is not experienced separate from the body. And so, if you reject Chidabhasa, that it is not, I will not accept Chidabhasa. Well, because I never experienced Chidabhasa independent of the mind. When the mind is manifest, Chidabhasa is there. When mind is resolved, Chidabhasa resolves. So I will not accept a independent existence of a Chidabhasa. If you say so, O Purupakshi, then I will negate mind also. You are accepting mind. You say mind manifests, Chidabhasa manifest. But I am asking you, you prove the independent existence of the mind, independent of the body. Please try to prove it. You cannot prove it. And therefore, if you negate Chidabhasa, O Purupakshi, I will negate mind. So are you ready for that or not? He says, I am not ready. If you are not ready, then we will have to prove we'll have to give the proof of the Chidabhasa and of the mind from some other source. And that source is Shastra. We will see that in next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.